Every human psyche carries fears that are invisible on the surface but powerful underneath, and within the feminine mind, there is one fear so ancient, so deeply woven into instinct and emotion that it shapes attraction, loyalty, respect, and even conflict, yet almost no one speaks about it. It is the fear of losing herself in the presence of someone stronger than her emotionally. Not stronger in dominance, not stronger in cruelty, but stronger in presence. A presence that threatens to make her feel vulnerable, exposed, and unable to maintain control. This fear is subtle, hidden behind confidence, laughter, independence, and even silence, but it is always there. And when we enter the world of Machiavellian dark psychology, we see not the manipulation, but the truth. People fear what they cannot command inside themselves. A woman may look fearless, powerful, accomplished, but beneath that is a deeper instinct. She fears the moment she meets someone who can read her without her speaking, someone who sees through her armor, who detects her emotions before she understands them, someone who can influence her heart without force. It is the fear of emotional transparency. Because emotional transparency removes her shield, it disarms her internal defenses. And this is the one thing the feminine mind hides from the world. She fears being fully seen by someone she secretly admires. She fears the man who is calm where others are reactive, the man who listens where others argue, the man who notices details that others overlook. This is not the man who chases her. This is the man she cannot predict. And unpredictability in the psychological world is more powerful than beauty, more powerful than charm, more powerful than status. Because unpredictability awakens curiosity, and curiosity awakens vulnerability. Vulnerability awakens fear. In the silent corners of her mind, she fears emotional surrender. Not physical surrender, not romantic surrender, but the surrender of losing the power to hide her truth. Because once she is emotionally exposed, she feels she can be hurt. She feels she can be abandoned. She feels she can be controlled, not by the man, but by her own emotions. Her fear is not him. Her fear is what he awakens inside her. And this is where Machiavellian psychology becomes relevant, not as manipulation, but as observation. Machiavelli said that people fear what they cannot control, but he never said the fear must come from danger. Sometimes the fear comes from desire. And when a woman feels a desire she cannot logically explain, her instinct reacts as if she is standing on unstable ground. She may pull away, she may test, she may deny her own feelings, not because she lacks affection, but because she fears how powerful that affection is. She fears disappearing into someone's gravity. She fears losing the emotional independence she has built. She fears trusting the wrong person. She fears needing someone more than they need her. And this fear is so deep that she will often disguise it as anger, indifference, overconfidence, or withdrawal. Many men misunderstand this. They think she is rejecting them, disrespecting them, losing interest, but in dark psychology, behaviors are never what they appear. Her fear hides behind opposite expressions. She becomes distant because she is overwhelmed. She becomes cold because she is warming up too fast. She becomes silent because her emotions are too loud. The feminine fear that no one talks about is the fear of emotional imbalance, the fear that someone else has the power to shift her inner world. She fights to keep control because losing emotional control is the deepest danger to her. This is why she tests a man's consistency, why she challenges his patience, why she pushes and pulls. These are not manipulations, they are survival instincts. She needs to know if the person who entered her emotional walls is stable enough to stay. And she needs to know if she is strong enough to let him in without losing herself. In the Machiavellian frame, the most powerful individuals are those who are not controlled by fear. But many women carry this secret burden quietly because society never allows them to express. They are told to be strong, independent, unbothered. They are told emotions are weakness. And so the fear stays buried, expressed only through behavior. Imagine a woman who built her identity around emotional strength. She has been hurt, betrayed, misunderstood. She promised herself she would never depend on anyone again. But then she meets someone whose presence softens her guard. Suddenly the rules she created no longer work, and this triggers the secret fear. If I let myself feel again, will I survive it? If I trust again, will I regret it? If I fall, who will catch me? The fear is not that he will hurt her. The fear is that her emotions will overpower her logic. In dark psychology, the mind always protects itself from threats, real or imagined. An emotional surrender is a psychological threat. She fears being replaced. She fears not being enough. She fears wanting someone who may not want her as strongly. These fears whisper quietly but influence loudly. They shape her decisions, her reactions, her defenses. And the irony is that the woman who fears being hurt often hurts herself by not embracing what she truly wants. When she meets a man who carries calmness like a weapon, who is grounded, who doesn't rush, who doesn't seek validation, who is emotionally disciplined, she feels drawn yet threatened. Not because he is dangerous, but because he is rare. A rare presence affects the nervous system. It creates internal instability, and instability triggers fear. A woman may walk away from a man she deeply wants just to regain the illusion of control. She may create distance to calm the storm inside her. She may test him not for dominance, but for reassurance. In her world, consistency is safety. Confidence is attraction, but emotional depth is danger. And the secret is this: she's not afraid of him. She is afraid of her own heart in his hands. Even though he may never misuse it, the fear itself becomes a shadow she can't escape. This is the fear no one talks about. The fear of losing emotional autonomy. If you observe the feminine psyche without judgment, you will see the truth. She becomes attached slowly but deeply. She protects herself not because she is cold, but because she remembers everything that once broke her. And sometimes she will even sabotage a relationship just to avoid reliving her past. This is not weakness, it is psychological self-defense. The tragedy is that many men misinterpret these behaviors as games or manipulation. They respond with frustration instead of patience, ego instead of understanding, detachment instead of stability. When she senses this, her fear deepens. But when she senses a man who remains unmoved by chaos, who remains composed when she is overwhelmed, who listens instead of reacting, who stays honest instead of defensive, fear begins to dissolve. The feminine fear is not solved through dominance or persuasion. It is dissolved through emotional safety, and emotional safety comes from consistency, sincerity, patience, and presence. Not perfection, presence. And the deeper truth is this: she wants to surrender emotionally, she wants to trust deeply, but she needs to feel that the ground beneath her is steady enough to stand on. She needs to feel that the person holding her emotions is strong enough not to drop them. She needs to feel that she can lose control without losing herself. In dark psychology, the most powerful force is not fear, it is understanding. The moment a man understands the secret feminine fear, he stops reacting to behavior and starts responding to emotion. He sees the hidden meaning behind her silence. He hears the message behind her words. He recognizes that her fear is simply a desire protected by caution. And this changes everything. Because the fear that no one talks about is actually a doorway. When she feels emotionally safe with someone, the fear transforms into connection. Vulnerability becomes trust. Guarding becomes intimacy. And the very thing she was afraid of becomes the thing she cherishes most. In the end, her secret fear reveals her deepest capacity to love. It shows that underneath independence, confidence, and strength lies a heart that feels intensely, dreams deeply, and hopes silently. And once that fear fades, the feminine soul reveals its most powerful truth, not weakness but courage, because opening up after fear is the bravest act of all. There is a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that the person she fears is also the person she is drawn to the most. It's not because he threatens her. It's not because he challenges her strength. It's because he awakens something inside her that she cannot control. And the feminine mind is wired to protect itself from anything that feels bigger than logic. This is why she becomes cautious with certain men, even when her heart leans forward. She wants to step closer, but her instincts pull her back. There is a silent war inside her between desire and self-protection, between curiosity and caution, between the part of her that wants to leap and the part that whispers, "Oh, be careful." This inner conflict is something she does not show to the world. She hides it behind her smile, behind her sarcasm, behind her busy routines, behind her independence. But deep inside, she is constantly measuring emotional risks. She observes everything: the tone of his voice, the way he looks at her, the rhythm of his presence. She notices small changes before he even realizes them. Because her fear is not about him leaving. Her fear is about her being the only one who feels deeply. Her fear is about imbalance. Giving more than she receives, opening more than he does. caring more than he admits. This imbalance threatens her emotional survival. A woman's heart is like a vault with two locks. One lock guarded by memory and the other by instinct. Memory reminds her of every time she trusted too easily. Instinct reminds her of every time she ignored her intuition. Together, they protect her from repeating what once broke her. And this is why she moves carefully, slowly, not because she lacks feeling, but because she feels too much. When a man brings stability, she softens. When he brings chaos, she retreats. When he brings inconsistency, she shuts down. But when he brings presence, true presence, the kind that feels grounded, attentive, aware, she becomes vulnerable. Presence is the most dangerous thing to her, because presence means he is emotionally available, and emotional availability forces her to confront her own desires. It forces her to acknowledge that she wants something she cannot fully control. She fears the moments when her thoughts start revolving around him, when she catches herself thinking about his message, waiting for his call, remembering his words. This is the moment her fear intensifies. Because the moment she begins to care, she feels exposed. And exposure for her is not physical, it is emotional. Emotional exposure means he has entered spaces inside her that she usually guards with layers of boundaries, and this is why she tests. Not to manipulate, but to check if her emotions are safe. A test is not a game. It is a question. She wants to know, will he stay consistent if I pull back? Will he stay patient if I become silent? Will he stay calm if I express my fears? She wants to know if he is someone she can surrender her guard to. Because surrender is not something she gives easily. It is something she gives once in a lifetime. Many men misunderstand her fear. They think she is dramatic, confusing, complicated. But the truth is simple. She is protecting the most sensitive part of herself. A woman who fears deeply is a woman who loves deeply. A woman who guards intensely is a woman who will give intensely once she feels safe. Her secret fear also comes from losing her identity in love. Society teaches her that losing herself is weakness, but her heart tells her that deep connection is strength. This duality makes her cautious. She wants to love, but she doesn't want to disappear. She wants connection, but she doesn't want dependency. She wants presence, but she doesn't want possession. And so she walks the tightrope between desire and self-respect, between longing and independence. When she meets a man who stays unshaken through all of this, she begins to trust. When he doesn't rush her emotions, when he doesn't pressure her pace, when he doesn't react to her fears with ego, she feels something rare: safety. And safety is the antidote to her secret fear. Safety dissolves her defenses. Safety melts her hesitation. Safety invites her to open the doors she once locked. Safety allows her to breathe into her emotions without feeling guilty or weak. A woman's deepest fear is not heartbreak. It is regret. She doesn't fear pain. She has survived it before. She fears giving her heart to someone who will waste it. She fears choosing wrong. She fears ignoring her intuition and paying the price later. And this fear is why she becomes distant even when she wants to be close. She must be absolutely certain before she steps forward. When she feels seen, not judged, not analyzed, but truly seen, her fear begins to fade. When a man looks at her and sees her strength and softness together, her armor loosens. When he listens to the silence behind her words, she feels understood. Ooh. When he stays stable, when she becomes emotional, she feels valued. And when he doesn't exploit her vulnerability, she finally feels ready to open. The feminine fear that no one talks about is actually a doorway to deep connection. It is the threshold she must cross before she lets someone into her soul, and this threshold is sacred. Only a man who is emotionally disciplined, self-aware, patient, and grounded can cross it. The truth is, she doesn't fear men. She fears giving her heart to a man who cannot hold it. She fears trusting someone who will not understand her depth. She fears loving someone who is not prepared for the intensity of her affection. And once she realizes that someone is capable, ready, steady, and sincere, fear dissolves like ice under sunlight. Then she becomes the version of herself she always hides, the version filled with tenderness, loyalty, passion, and devotion. A woman's love is not small. It is not casual. It is not temporary. It is a force that can rebuild a man's world or destroy her own, and that is why her fear exists. She is not afraid of love. She is afraid of loving the wrong person. Once she feels safe, Once she feels understood, once she feels emotionally protected, she transforms. Her softness returns, her laughter deepens, her trust becomes strong, her loyalty becomes unshakable. And the fear that once controlled her becomes the reason she loves so deeply. Because she chose carefully, intentionally, powerfully, there comes a point where the feminine fear starts shaping the entire connection without a single word being spoken. It's in the pauses between conversations, the tension in silence, the way she looks away when her feelings grow too strong, the way her voice changes when she senses she's losing control. She begins to fear not the man himself, but the emotional power he holds simply by existing in her life. This is the power she pretends not to feel, the power she tries to suppress, the power she sometimes tries to escape. Because the moment she sees him as someone who can affect her inner world, she becomes alert. That alertness is ancient. It comes from generations of women who had to protect their hearts in a world that often didn't protect them. And so she becomes careful even when she doesn't want to be. She pulls away even when she wants to move closer. She says, "I'm fine," even when her mind is spinning. She pretends she's busy when she's actually thinking about him too much. She gives short replies when her emotions become too loud. And the confusing part is, the stronger her feelings grow, the more she hides them. This is her instinct, not her intention. She fears being predictable. She fears being too available. She fears giving him the advantage of knowing how deeply he affects her. But what she doesn't realize is that her fear is visible in her restraint. In Machiavellian psychology, restraint reveals desire far more than expression. Silence reveals more than confessions. Distance reveals more than closeness. A woman distances herself not when she loses interest, but when the interest becomes too powerful for her to handle comfortably. She fears losing her emotional balance. She fears becoming the one who cares more. That imbalance feels like surrender, and surrender feels like a threat to her inner stability. Deep inside, she battles with thoughts she cannot say out loud. She wonders what he feels. She wonders if he thinks about her when she disappears. She wonders if he notices her small changes. She wonders if her absence bothers him. She wonders if she is just another moment in his life or something he silently values. These thoughts consume her more than she ever admits. And every unanswered question becomes part of her fear. What intensifies her fear the most is uncertainty. Masculine uncertainty is her emotional kryptonite. When he becomes unpredictable, not in a chaotic, irresponsible way, but in a calm, unbothered, self-focused way, she feels unsteady. A man who is self-contained, emotionally disciplined, and not desperate for her attention triggers a deep instinct inside her. She fears losing someone she doesn't even fully have yet. This is one of the most silent, unspoken fears, the fear of potential loss before anything has even begun. She wants assurance but fears asking for it. She wants clarity but fears appearing needy. She wants closeness but fears giving the invitation. So she waits. She observes. She hides her feelings to see if he reveals his. She retreats slightly, hoping he will step forward. She slows down, hoping he will match her pace. And this dance of hesitation becomes the battlefield where both attraction and fear collide. If the man reacts with impatience or insecurity, her fear grows stronger. But if he reacts with calmness, understanding, or steady presence, her fear begins to shift. Because fear does not disappear through pressure, it dissolves through consistency. When he remains emotionally stable, even when she is unsure, distant, overwhelmed, it sends a message to her subconscious: you are safe here. And safety is the one thing that dismantles her defenses. Yet there is another layer to her fear, one even deeper, darker, more shadowed by past hurts. It is the fear that she herself is too much, too emotional, too sensitive, too complex, too intense, too loving, too demanding, too fragile, too passionate, too expressive. She fears overwhelming the man she cares about. She fears not being enough and being too much at the same time. This paradox shapes her behavior more than anything else. She hides her depth because she fears he cannot handle it. She hides her affection because she fears it may scare him away. She hides her vulnerability because she fears it will make her dependent. And so she becomes the version of herself that feels safest, controlled, composed, mysterious, slightly distant, slightly unpredictable. She does this not to play games, but to survive her own feelings. What she truly wants is simple. A place where she can be soft without being taken for granted, where she can be emotional without being judged, where she can be expressive without being dismissed, where she can surrender without losing herself. But she has learned that not everyone deserves access to her softness. Not everyone has earned the right to see the real woman behind the fear. When a man understands this, truly understands the psychological weight of her hidden fear, he becomes someone she instinctively trusts. Not because he forces her to, not because he persuades her, but because his presence speaks louder than any promises. A woman listens not to a man's words, but to his energy. His energy tells her everything, whether he is stable, whether he is kind, whether he is patient, whether he is consistent, whether he is someone she can risk her heart with. Her greatest fear becomes her greatest surrender when she meets a man whose energy feels like home. The irony is that the more she resists her feelings, the deeper they grow. Fighting her emotions does not weaken them, it intensifies them. Distance makes her think more, silence makes her feel more. Space makes her desire more, because what she's truly afraid of is how powerful her own heart becomes when it chooses someone. And when her fear finally breaks, when she decides she can trust him, she reveals a version of herself that is rare, breathtaking, and fiercely loyal. She opens the door completely. She lets him into her mind, her emotions, her insecurities, her dreams. She loves with a depth that most men never experience. But that depth only appears after she conquers the fear that guarded. This is the feminine secret. The fear is not a barrier to love. It is a test of the soul. She gives the deepest parts of herself only to the one who proves he can hold them.